Hey guys, tonight some friends and I are stepping onto a creaking porch, a giant map of the U.S. spread out under the dim glow of a single lantern. We're tracing state lines with our fingers, not just looking at cities and forests, but at the blank spaces, the deep woods, the isolated lakes, the forgotten tunnels where the stories live. We're not just talking about urban legends, we're hunting for the truth behind America's most secret creatures, the specific monster said to be hiding in every single state. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. And let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We start in the deep South in Alabama, where witnesses describe an 8-foot-tall snow-white horror crashing through the pines. They call it the White Thang, an albino beast with glowing red eyes that has haunted the state for generations.
The White Thang, an 8-foot-tall albino specter with eyes that glow like stolen traffic signals, standing perfectly still in the middle of a moonlit pine grove, not growling, not fleeing, just watching, as if it's been waiting for you to finally look up from your phone and realize the forest has been talking all along. It doesn't roar. It doesn't leave footprints the size of tractor tires. It doesn't steal livestock or overturn outhouses like some drunken cryptozoological cliché. Instead, it appears where logic ends, near abandoned churches with broken stained glass, beside rusted pickup trucks parked at the edge of forgotten gravel roads, its pale fur catching the light like a corpse wrapped in hospital sheets, its red eyes pulsing slow and steady, like a heart trying to remember how to beat. Locals swear it never blinks. Some say it hums, just below hearing, a vibration in the molars, the kind of sound your bones make when they know something is wrong before your brain catches up. Others claim it only shows itself to people who've lied to themselves one too many times. The preacher who stopped believing, the mother who forgot her child's name during a meltdown, the mechanic who swore he'd fix his life next week for 30 years. No fossil record, no blurry drone footage that holds up under scrutiny, just stories passed down like family recipes, spiced with bourbon, salted with silence. The Choctaw elders called it Hodaka's mirror, a spirit that doesn't hunt, but reflects, the part of you that hides in the dark so you won't have to face what you've become. When the first white man saw it in 73 near Mobile, he didn't scream. He dropped his coffee, whispered, "Lord, that ain't natural," and drove straight to the county line without looking back. He never spoke of it again, not even to his wife, not even after she died. And yet here it is now, in memes, in indie folk songs, on neon signs outside roadside diners that sell fried green tomatoes and haunted souvenir magnets. People don't believe in the White Thing because they think it's real. They believe in it because they need it to be. In a world where everything is quantified, cataloged, and algorithmically explained, the White Thing refuses to be decoded. It doesn't obey physics. It doesn't want fame. It doesn't care if you tweet about it. It simply exists as a silent, glowing accusation, a myth carved not by fear, but by longing. The longing to believe that somewhere out there, beyond the reach of Wi-Fi and wellness podcasts, something ancient, strange, and utterly unapologetic is still watching and still waiting for you to admit you're lost.
Alaska's Tizheruk doesn't just lurk in the sea. It's the ocean's way of saying, "You built a boat? Cool. Let's see how fast you can swim." Long before GPS or life jackets, Inuit elders told tales of this serpentine horror with a neck longer than your kayak, capable of swallowing a boat whole. But this wasn't just a scary story. It was a survival manual disguised as myth. To disrespect the Tizheruk was to invite disaster. Meanwhile, when Russian traders heard the stories, they laughed until their ship vanished. Suddenly, it wasn't a legend, it was a liability. The Inuit saw a guardian of balance. Westerners saw a cryptid to hunt. Classic cultural misunderstanding, like trying to explain TikTok to your grandma. Picture this, a long, sinuous neck rising from the water, eyes like black pearls, a body that moves like liquid shadow. Some accounts say it has a walrus head, others claim a human face. But the real kicker? It doesn't just attack, it disappears. One moment your boat's there, the next it's gone, leaving only an oar floating like a "ha ha ha, you're doomed" note. It's the ocean's version of a ghost who stole your keys and hid them in the fridge. So what's the real deal? Maybe a giant squid, a whale carcass, or ice floes shifting. But the deeper truth, humans have always needed monsters to explain the unexplainable. When the sea turns violent, when the wind howls like a banshee, we need something to blame. The Tizheruk isn't real, but the fear it represents is. It's the voice of the ocean saying, "You're not in charge here." Today, the Tizheruk shows up in Alaska tourism ads, climate documentaries, and even as a mascot for eco-activists. It's become a symbol of nature's untamed power. And in a world where we've mapped every inch of the planet, the Tizheruk reminds us that some mysteries still have teeth. The Tizheruk isn't a creature of the sea. It's a mirror. It reflects our arrogance, our fear, and our desperate need to believe that the world is still wild enough to surprise us. Because in the end, the ocean doesn't need monsters. We do.
Arizona, the Mogollon monster. A cryptid that doesn't just lurk in the pines, but embodies the desert's refusal to be tamed by concrete and coffee shops. Long before Arizona became a state, the ancient Mogollon people carved stone figures that looked like, well, something that didn't belong, like a prehistoric "I told you so" etched into rock. Then the Apache told stories of Yay, spirit beings that walked between worlds, not as monsters, but as reminders that the land has its own rules. But when settlers arrived, they called it a monster, and suddenly it was a problem to be solved. Fast forward to 1973. A hiker named Robert Smith swore he saw an 8-foot-tall beast with glowing red eyes near the Mogollon Rim. He didn't run, he took notes, because sometimes the only way to survive the wild is to document it. But here's the kicker. His camera malfunctioned. Coincidence? Or did the desert itself delete the evidence? The Apache saw it as a guardian of balance. Loggers saw it as a threat. Classic clash. The desert's spirit versus the bulldozer. One group's sacred symbol was another's excuse for a hunting trip. Sounding familiar? It's the same story as every time humans try to tame the wild, only to realize the wild doesn't care about your property lines. The Mogollon monster doesn't just have fur. It has attitude. It's been described as smelling like sulfur, moving like a shadow,
and vanishing when you blink. Some say it's a bear with mange. Others claim it's a ghost of the Mogollon people themselves. But the weirdest detail, every sighting happens exactly where the land is being developed. Coincidence, or is the monster a protest? Imagine a creature that appears only when you're paving over its home. It's like the desert's Yelp review. 1 star, would not recommend development. Real-world inspiration? Probably a bear, a drunk hiker, or a trick of the light. But the real story is deeper. As Phoenix sprawls into the desert, we need a monster to remind us that nature isn't ours to control. It's the desert's way of saying, you don't own this, like a cosmic eviction notice. Because when the only thing left wild is your fear, you start believing in monsters. Today, it's on T-shirts, in Payson's annual festival, and even in Netflix documentaries. It's not just a cryptid. It's a symbol of our love-hate relationship with the wild. We build cities, then create monsters to mourn what we've lost. It's the ultimate irony. We invent the wild to prove it's gone. The Mogollon monster isn't real, but it's true. Because when we feel the desert closing in, we invent creatures to scream what we can't say. We're losing something we'll never get back. And honey, that's the most human thing of all.
The Fouke monster is a smelly, ape-like cryptid that doesn't just lurk in the woods, but embodies the stench of progress itself in Arkansas. Long before the 1970s sightings, the Choctaw spoke of Hudaka, spirit guardians of the land, not monsters. But when settlers arrived, they didn't see protectors. They saw obstacles. So they renamed them monsters and started hunting them. Classic case of you don't like it, you kill it. Fast forward to 1971, the Blevins family reported a 7-foot-tall, fur-covered beast with glowing red eyes attacking their home. Suddenly, it wasn't a sacred spirit, it was a monster to be documented. But here's the twist. The same woods settlers called scary were the same ones the Choctaw revered. It's like calling a forest dangerous because you're the one with the chainsaw. The Fouke monster doesn't just smell bad, it reeks like a dumpster fire left in the sun, a sulfuric stench that clings to your clothes like regret. Eyewitnesses swear it moves like a shadow with legs, leaves footprints the size of dinner plate, and has a voice like a chainsaw gargling gravel. But the weirdest detail? Every sighting happens right where logging trucks are tearing up the forest. Coincidence? Or is the monster's smell the odor of the land screaming? Real-world inspiration? Probably a bear, a drunk hunter, or a trick of the light. But the real story is deeper. When the woods are being destroyed, we need a monster to scream what we can't say. The Fouke monster isn't real, but the fear it represents is. It's the smell of progress, the taste of loss, the sound of silence where birds used to sing. It's nature's Yelp review. 1 star, would not recommend clear-cutting. Today, Fouke celebrates it with a museum, a festival, and T-shirts that say, I survived the Fouke monster, despite no one actually surviving. It's a tourist attraction, a regional mascot, a low-budget horror film from 1972 that turned it into cult folklore. But behind the jokes, it's a quiet protest. In a world where every forest is a parking lot, the Fouke monster reminds us the wild still has teeth. And it's not just in the woods. It's in us. The Fouke monster isn't a creature of the woods. It's a mirror. It reflects our arrogance, our fear, and our desperate need to believe the world is still wild enough to surprise us. Because in the end, the woods don't need monsters. We do. We invent them to mourn what we've lost. And honey, that's the most human thing of all. We create monsters not to explain the unknown, but to hide from the fact that we're the ones destroying the unknown. So next time you hear about a cryptid, ask yourself, is it the monster we fear, or the monster we've become? No refunds.
California's Dark Watchers aren't your average cryptid. They don't roar. They don't chase you. They just stand there, silent and still, like the world's most passive-aggressive security camera. These figures are the land's own silent witnesses, watching travelers pass through their domain like they're judging your life choices. Long before Silicon Valley, the Esalen people spoke of spirits called the ones who remember, guardians of the mountains who observed without interfering. Then settlers arrived, saw shadows on the ridges, and turned them into evil spirits. Classic case of you don't like it, you demonize it. To the indigenous tribes, they were protectors. To the gold rushers, they were omens of doom. One group saw ancestral wisdom, the other saw supernatural threats. It's like seeing a mirror and deciding it's haunted because you don't like your reflection. Sounding familiar? It's the same story every time humans try to conquer nature, only to realize nature was watching all along. They don't move. They don't speak. They're tall, shadowy, sometimes faceless, standing perfectly still on mountain ridges. Hikers swear they've seen them, but when they look again, they're gone. It's like the land's own silent movie. No dialogue, just lingering stares. Some say they have no eyes. Others say their eyes are the stars. A ranger once reported seeing one standing on a cliff, perfectly still for hours. When he turned to call his team, it was gone. No footprints, no trace. Just the wind and the silence, like the mountain had swallowed it whole. Coincidence or the mountain's way of saying, you're not supposed to be here. Real inspiration, fog, shadows, maybe a bear. But the real story is deeper. When you're alone in the wilderness, your mind creates watchers. It's not the monsters we fear, it's the silence that makes us feel watched. The Dark Watchers are the land's way of reminding us we're the intruders. Every time you hike through Big Sur, the mountains are watching back. We paved over their territory, then got scared when the land stared back. Classic case of you don't like it, you demonize it. Only to realize the monster was always us. Today, they're in podcasts, social media, and even tourism ads. But here's the irony. In an age of constant surveillance, the Dark Watchers are the original Big Brother, but they don't need cameras. They just stand there, silent, watching us forget we're part of the land, not its owners. We've got apps tracking our every move, yet the land watches us without a single pixel. It's like the universe's passive-aggressive reminder, you don't own this. The Dark Watchers aren't real, but they're true. Because the real monster isn't the shadow on the ridge, it's the idea that we own the land. The mountains know better. They've been watching us all along.
Colorado's Tommyknockers aren't your typical cryptid. They're the world's most annoying roommates, 12 inches tall, living in mines, and their idea of a good time is hiding your lunchbox and replacing your coffee with sawdust, all while humming off-key nursery rhymes. Forget Bigfoot's footprints. These tiny gremlins have been sabotaging miners since the 1800s, turning pickaxes into toothpicks and lunchboxes into rock collections. Their name? A mashup of Tommy, old slang for miners, and knockers, the eerie tapping sounds they make in tunnels. But here's the twist. They didn't start in Colorado. European miners brought them over from Germany's kobolds, mischievous household spirits who'd fix your tools if you left them bread, or wreck your house if you didn't. When these miners hit the Rocky Mountains, they didn't just bring their tools, they brought their folklore. And suddenly every cave-in, every missing tool was blamed on Tommyknockers. It's like blaming your Wi-Fi for your bad day. Convenient, but also deeply human. In Europe, kobolds were household guardians. In America, they became mining demons. One group saw helpful spirits, the other saw vengeful ghosts. Classic cultural translation fail. Like calling a squirrel a flying rat because it's too busy eating your birdseed. But the real drama, miners swore Tommyknockers taunted them. One account from 1879 describes a miner finding his lunchbox filled with rocks, his lantern dimmed, and tiny footprints leading into the darkness. He quit the next day. Coincidence, or the land's way of saying, "You're not welcome here"? Real-world inspiration? Probably rodents, carbon monoxide poisoning, or exhaustion-induced hallucinations. But the deeper truth is more sinister. Humans create monsters when they feel guilty. Every time a mine collapses, every time a miner dies, we need something to blame, something other than our own greed. Tommyknockers aren't real, but the fear they represent is. They're the land's Yelp review. 1 star, would not recommend drilling into my bones. Today, they're in Colorado tourism ads, haunted mine tours, and even a craft beer named after them. But here's the irony. In a world where we've mapped every inch of the planet, Tommyknockers remind us the Earth still has teeth. They're not just goblins, they're a mirror. Every time we dig deeper, we're not just mining for gold, we're mining for excuses to ignore the damage we're doing. The Tommyknockers aren't real, but they're true. Because the real monster isn't the tiny figure in the dark. It's the idea that we own the land. And, honey, the mountains know better. They've been knocking on our doors since the first pickaxe hit rock. So next time you hear a tap in the mine, ask yourself, is it a gremlin, or is it the earth knocking to remind us we're trespassers? No refunds.
Connecticut's melon heads aren't just a campfire story. They're the physical manifestation of a society that locked away its problems and forgot to look back. Or maybe they're just the result of a mental asylum so neglected that even the patients became legends. Depends on whether you're willing to see the truth behind the myth. In the late 1800s, Connecticut's New Britain Asylum was a dumping ground for the unfit. People with mental illness, disabilities, or simply inconvenient lives. No treatment,
just concrete walls and silence. When patients escaped, locals didn't ask why. They whispered about monsters with oversized heads lurking in the woods. Classic case of blaming the victim. Meanwhile, Europe had its own wild man myths. But America's twist? We didn't just fear the unknown, we created it by locking people away. The Melonhead's anatomy? Big heads from malnutrition or genetic disorders, pale skin, and a reputation for cannibalism. But here's the kicker. No one's ever found a single body, just rumors. Teenagers dared each other to visit the asylum at night, claiming to hear whispers or see shadows. Coincidence? Or the sound of a broken system screaming? One story claims a doctor found a patient with an abnormally large skull and declared him a monster, ignoring that the real deformity was the institution itself. Real-world inspiration? Easy. Eugenics movements, overcrowded asylums, and the fact that inbred cannibals were often just people starved of care. The human psychology here is brutal. When we refuse to help the vulnerable, we invent monsters to justify our neglect. It's like blaming a broken toaster for the fire it caused. Today, melon heads are everywhere. Horror podcasts, TikTok challenges, even a local festival where kids sell monster-shaped cookies. But the real echo isn't in the woods. It's in the 21st century mental health crisis. We've replaced asylums with prisons and homelessness, but the fear of the other remains. We still lock away people who don't fit, then call them monsters when they break free. The melonheads aren't real, but they're true, because the real monster isn't the one with the big head. It's the society that built the walls. We create myths not to explain the unknown, but to hide from the fact that we're the ones who made it unknown.
Pukwudgies, tiny grey-skinned tricksters with a knack for turning your day into a chaotic sitcom, or maybe nature's way of keeping humans humble. Depends where you ask. Long before Delaware became a state, the Wampanoag people told stories of these pint-sized troublemakers, not as monsters, but as teachers. They weren't the kind of creatures you'd find on a horror podcast. They were the original troll of the natural world, disappearing mid-laugh, stealing tools, and leading hikers in circles just to see if you'd apologize. One elder's tale describes a Pukwudgie trailing a settler through the woods, mimicking his footsteps until the man tripped over his own feet. Instead of fear, the Wampanoag saw a lesson. Respect the land, or it'll remind you who's really in charge. But when European settlers arrived, they didn't hear lesson. They heard demon. Suddenly, these playful tricksters were rebranded as evil spirits, cursed souls, or worse, proof the land was cursed. Classic case of cultural translation fail. It's like calling a squirrel a demon because it ate your birdseed. Meanwhile, the Wampanoag knew Pukwudgies weren't malicious. They were the universe's way of saying, "You're not the boss of me." Their anatomy? 3 feet tall, grey skin, oversized ears that twitch like they're listening to your secrets. They can vanish into thin air, make you sick with a glance, or guide you home if you show respect. One story tells of a settler lost in the woods, screaming for help, until a Pukwudgie appeared, pointed to the path, and vanished. Coincidence? Or nature's version of a GPS that only works if you're humble? Real-world inspiration? Probably misidentified animals. hallucinations from dehydration, or the human brain's desperate need to explain why your compass spins wildly. But the deeper truth, we create a trickster when we refuse to accept chaos, when your hike goes off track, when your phone dies, when the universe laughs at your plans. Pukwudgies are the myth that says, hey, you're not special. Nature doesn't care about your schedule. Today, they're in Delaware tourism ads, local folklore podcasts, and even a craft brewing named Pukwudgie Pale Ale. But the real echo isn't in the woods, it's in our obsession with control. Climate change, pandemics, social media chaos. We're still trying to solve the unpredictable. We build apps to track everything, yet the land still laughs at our plans. The Pukwudgie isn't real, but it's true. Because the real monster isn't the trickster, it's our arrogance. We invent myths not to explain the unknown, but to pretend we can control it.
Florida's skunk ape doesn't just smell bad. It's the Everglades way of saying you don't belong here in the most offensive way possible. This cryptid reeks of defiance. Long before settlers turned the Everglades into a theme park, the Seminole people spoke of hoochie, forest spirits who guarded the land. They weren't monsters, they were protectors. But when Europeans arrived, they didn't hear guardian, they heard monster, and suddenly it was a threat to be hunted. Classic case of you don't like it, you kill it. The Seminole saw hoochie as a teacher. Settlers saw a beast to be feared. One group understood the land's rules, the other tried to conquer it. It's like calling a squirrel a demon because it ate your birdseed. Now anatomy. 7 feet tall, covered in dark fur, eyes glowing like swamp gas, and a stench so bad it could cancel out a perfume factory. One 1970s sighting described it as smelling like a skunk crossed with a rotten egg, followed by a dumpster fire. It doesn't just appear, it announces itself. A hiker once found his car covered in mud and hair, the smell lingering for days. Coincidence? Or the land's Yelp review, 1 star, would not recommend trespassing. Real-world inspiration? Probably a bear with mange, a drunk hunter, or a hoax. But the deeper truth, humans create monsters when they forget they're part of nature, not its owners. Every time the Everglades is drained for development, the skunk ape reappears, like the swamp's own protest sign. Today, it's on T-shirts, in Florida tourism ads, and even a skunk ape festival where they sell smelly candy. But here's the irony. In a world where we've paved over half of the Everglades, the skunk ape reminds us that nature doesn't need us. It's not a creature of the swamp, it's the swamp's voice.
Altamaha-ha, a 20-foot-long river monster with glowing eyes, or a manatee that got lost in the wrong state and decided to hold a grudge. Depends on where you ask. Long before Georgia swamps became a tourist attraction, the Muskogee people spoke of Oconee, not a monster, but a guardian of the Altamaha-ha River. They didn't fear it, they respected it. If you disturbed the water, Oconee would remind you who was in charge. Then settlers arrived, saw a shadow in the river, and called it a monster. Classic case of you don't like it, you demonize it. It's like calling a squirrel a demon because it ate your birdseed. The Muskogee saw Oconee as a protector. Settlers saw a threat. One group understood the river's rules. The other tried to conquer it. Fast forward to 1970s Georgia. Fishermen swore they saw a sea serpent with a long neck, scaly back, and eyes like glowing coals. A blurry photo surfaced, later debunked as a floating log, but the legend stuck. Coincidence? Or the river's way of saying, you don't own this? It's a matamy, 20 feet long, serpentine, with a seal-like head and a smell like rotten eggs mixed with swamp gas. Some say it can vanish underwater like a ghost. Others claim it only appears when the water is polluted, like nature's Yelp review. 1 star, would not recommend dumping chemicals in my home. Real-world inspiration? Probably a manatee that wandered too far north, though they don't live here. A giant alligator with a bad hair day, or a fisherman who drank too much moonshine. But the deeper truth, humans create monsters when they forget they're part of nature, not its owners. Every time we drain wetlands for development, the Altamaha-ha reappears, not as a threat, but as a warning. Today it's on T-shirts, in local festivals, and even an Altie craft beer. But the real echo isn't in the river, it's in our climate crisis. We've paved over half the Everglades, yet the land still fights back. We build dams, drill for oil, and wonder why the world feels unstable. The Altamaha-ha doesn't need to exist to remind us the river doesn't care about your property lines.
Hawaii's Menehune aren't just little people. They're the original overnight delivery service for ancient temples, working under the cover of darkness when humans weren't looking. These tiny craftsmen built massive stone fish ponds and aqueducts in a single night, then vanished like a ghost in a Hawaiian sunset. Long before tourists flooded Waikiki, Hawaiian elders spoke of them not as monsters, but as skilled artisans, the original "how did they do that?" mystery. They didn't build for glory. They built because the land asked, and they answered in silence. Imagine stacking 10-ton stones like Legos before sunrise, then disappearing without a trace. Classic case of, if you build it, they'll vanish. But when Western explorers arrived, they didn't see artisans. They saw little people to be dismissed as superstition. Europeans call them myths, but Hawaiians knew better. It's like calling a master chef a magic trick because you don't understand the recipe. The Menehune weren't meant to be solved. They were meant to be respected. Their anatomy? 3 feet tall, dressed in woven leaves, with a love for precision and a hatred of being seen. They move stones that modern archaeologists still can't explain, like the Alicoco fish pond, a 500-foot-long pond with perfectly angled walls built overnight. One story tells of a chief who tried to catch them. He set a trap, but woke to find his tools rearranged and his house demolished. They're the original pranksters, but with a purpose. You don't own the land, you serve it. Real-world inspiration? Probably. Early Hawaiians built structures, but the legend explains the impossible. The human psychology here is simple. When we don't understand how something was built, we invent helpers. It's not about fear, it's about wonder. We create myths to honor the unknown, not to fear it. Today, Menehune are everywhere. In Hawaii's tourism ads, on t-shirts, even in local businesses named after them. But the real echo isn't in the souvenir shops. It's in how we still need mystery. In a world of GPS and AI, we're still building temples we can't explain, and we still need the Menehune to remind us that some things are better left unexplained.
Idaho's Payette Lake has been home to Sharlie for decades, a long serpentine monster with a dinosaur head that's never been caught, photographed clearly, or scientifically proven to exist. Long before Idaho became a state, the Shoshone and Bannock tribes spoke of Wolpa, water spirits that guarded the lakes and rivers. They weren't monsters, they were teachers. If you fished too greedily or disturbed the water, Wolpa would remind you who was really in charge. Then settlers arrived, saw ripples in the water, and called it a monster. Classic case of you don't like it, you demonize it. It's like calling a squirrel a demon because it ate your birdseed. The Shoshone saw Wolpa as a protector. Settlers saw a threat. One group understood the lake's rules. The other tried to conquer it. Fast forward to the 1940s. Fishermen swore they saw a 20-foot-long creature with a long neck and a head like a plesiosaur. A blurry photo surfaced, later debunked as a floating log, but the legend stuck. Coincidence? Or the lake's way of saying, you don't own this? Its anatomy? Serpentine body, dinosaur-like head, glowing eyes that flicker like campfire embers. Some say it leaves ripples that move like liquid silk. Others claim it only appears when the water is polluted, like nature's Yelp review. One star, would not recommend dumping chemicals in my home. Real-world inspiration? Probably a giant sturgeon, a floating log, or a fisherman who drank too much moonshine. But the deeper truth, humans create monsters when they forget they're part of nature, not its owners. Every time we drain wetlands for development, Sharlie reappears, not as a threat, but as a warning. Today it's on T-shirts, in local festivals, and even a Sharlie craft beer. But the real echo isn't in the lake. It's in our obsession with control. Climate change, pandemics, social media chaos. We're still trying to solve the unpredictable. We build apps to track everything, yet the lake still laughs at our plans.
Illinois doesn't need Bigfoot. It has a three-legged hopper with pink eyes that hisses like a broken radiator and moves like a kangaroo on 3 cups of coffee. Or maybe it's just a raccoon who found a third leg at a thrift store and decided to audition for Cirque du Soleil. Depends on who you ask. In 1973, a family in Enfield, Illinois, swore they saw it, hopping through their yard, glowing pink eyes locked on theirs, a sound like a wet sponge being squeezed.
But this wasn't the first time humans turned the unknown into monsters. Long before TikTok, ancient cultures like the Sumerians blamed chaos on dragons, and the Navajo saw Yein spirits as teachers, not threats. Yet, when settlers arrived, they called them demons. Classic case of, you don't like it, you kill it. It's like calling a squirrel a demon because it ate your birdseed. The Enfield horror's anatomy: 3 legs, a body like a mangy dog, and eyes that glow like expired glow sticks. Witnesses claimed it moved in jerky hops, leaving 3-toed prints that vanished by dawn. One man said it hissed like a teapot screaming into a vacuum. Another swore it smelled like burnt popcorn and regret. Coincidence? Or the universe's way of saying, you're not special enough to understand this? Real-world inspiration? Probably a 3-legged dog, a raccoon with a leg injury, or a hallucination from too much moonshine. But the deeper truth: humans create monsters when life feels chaotic. The 1970s were a decade of war, economic collapse, and political distrust. Perfect conditions to invent something to blame. We didn't fear the creature, we feared our own helplessness. It's like blaming a broken toaster for your burned toast while ignoring the dead battery in the smoke alarm. Today, it's a footnote in cryptid history, mentioned in local podcasts and haunted Illinois tour guides. But the real echo isn't in the woods. It's in our obsession with labeling the unexplainable. Climate change, pandemics, AI. Every crisis gets a monster. We need something to fight, something to fear, because admitting we're powerless is scarier than any 3-legged hopper.
A car-sized snapping turtle that could bite through steel. Or a giant turtle myth born from a farmer's bad day and too much moonshine. Long before a farmer spotted it in 1949, turtles were already legends. In Hindu mythology, the world rests on a turtle's back. In Native American stories, turtles are creators. But in Indiana, they're car-sized monsters with a taste for chaos. Farmers didn't just see a turtle, they saw a legend with a bad attitude. When a farmer claimed to see a 500-pound snapping turtle the size of a car in Busco Lake, locals believed him. Outsiders called it a hoax. Classic case of, you don't like it, you dismiss it. It's like calling a squirrel a demon because it ate your birdseed. But the real drama? The town tried to capture it with dynamite. Yeah, dynamite. Because nothing says scientific approach like blowing up a lake to find a turtle that might not exist. Coincidence? Or the universe's way of saying, you don't own this water? The beast of Busco's anatomy. A shell bigger than a sedan, jaws strong enough to bite through a canoe, and eyes that glow like a flashlight in the dark. Witnesses swore it moved like a tank, leaving ripples that looked like a tsunami. One man claimed it hissed like a chainsaw. Another said it vanished before he could blink. Some say it left footprints the size of dinner plates. Others claimed it could swallow a dog whole. One farmer swore it stared at him for hours before vanishing into the depths, leaving behind a smell like rotten eggs and regret. Real-world inspiration? Probably a giant alligator that wandered north, though they don't live here, a misidentified turtle, or pure imagination. But the deeper truth? Humans create monsters when they forget the world is still mysterious. Every time we drain a lake for development, the beast of Busco reappears, not as a threat, but as a warning. Today it's on T-shirts, in local festivals, and even a Beast of Busco museum. But the real echo isn't in the lake. It's in our obsession with control. Climate change, pandemics, social media chaos. We're still trying to solve the unpredictable. We build apps to track everything, yet the lake still laughs at our plans. In a world where Google Maps shows every inch of the planet, the Beast of Busco reminds us that some mysteries still have teeth. It's not about the turtle, it's about our need to believe the world isn't completely known. Because if everything's explained, what's left to wonder about?
Sinkhole Sam isn't a monster. It's the Earth's Yelp review for everything we've buried underground. Or maybe just a very confused eel who got lost in the plumbing. Long before Kansas was a state, the Osage people spoke of Wakantanka spirits, of the earth that guarded water. They weren't monsters, they were teachers. If you poisoned the ground, the spirits would remind you. Meanwhile, Mesopotamian myths from 4000 BCE featured water demons like Enki's chaos serpents. But when settlers arrived in the 1800s, they didn't see protectors, they saw monsters lurking in sinkholes. Classic case of, you don't like it, you demonize it. It's like blaming a squirrel for your Wi-Fi cutting out. The anatomy? 15 feet long, slimy skin that glows like a bad neon sign, eyes that flicker like a dying light bulb. Witnesses say it hisses like a steam pipe, leaves behind a smell of old pennies and regret. One farmer in 1952 claimed it vanished when he turned on his irrigation system. Another swore it appeared only after fracking operations began. One story claims it moves like liquid shadow, slipping through cracks in the earth like a ghost in the subway tunnel. Another says it leaves behind a trail of salt crystals, like the Earth's own tears. Coincidence? Or the Earth's way of saying, you're draining me dry? Real-world inspiration? Probably a giant catfish or a misidentified eel. But the deeper truth is our own negligence. Kansas has lost 30% of its groundwater since 1950. The Ogallala Aquifer is collapsing, and sinkholes are popping up like potholes on a bad road. We create monsters when we refuse to see our own impact. It's like blaming a broken toaster for your burnt toast while ignoring the dead battery in the smoke alarm. When the aquifer drops, sinkholes swallow farms and highways. The real monster isn't the creature, it's the illusion of infinite resources. We treat groundwater like a 24/7 soda machine, but the earth isn't a vending machine, it's a living system. And systems have limits. Today, Sinkhole Sam is a mascot for groundwater conservation. Environmental groups use him in ads like, "Don't let Sinkhole Sam eat your water." Schools teach kids about him to explain aquifer depletion. Even a local brewery named a beer Sinkhole Sam's Last Stand. But the real echo isn't in the sinkholes, it's in our climate crisis. We pump water like it's endless, then blame the earth for collapsing. We build cities on unstable ground, then wonder why the ground gives way. It's the same story as every time we ignore nature's warnings until the earth starts sending back receipts. Sinkhole Sam isn't real, but it's true. Because the real monster isn't the creature in the dark, it's our arrogance. We create myths, not to explain the unknown, but to hide from the fact that we're the ones pausing the sinkholes. And honey, the earth knows better. It's been sending us text messages since forever. No refunds.
In 1903, Iowa farmers didn't just see a winged humanoid with a glowing horn. They saw the future staring back at them. Or maybe it was just a confused turkey vulture with a headlamp taped to its head. Long before Van Meter, Iowa became a dot on the map, humans were already inventing winged beings. Mesopotamian Lamassu, winged bulls with human faces, were palace guardians, while Greek harpies were shrieking thieves of food and souls. But in Iowa, the Van Meter visitor wasn't a protector or a thief. It was a ghost of progress, a creature born not from myth, but from the panic of a town racing toward the industrial age. When settlers arrived, they didn't see a symbol of balance. They saw a threat. Classic case of, you don't like change, you make a monster. It's like blaming a squirrel for your Wi-Fi cutting out. The anatomy? 6 feet tall, leathery wings, a horn that glowed like a cosmic glow stick, and eyes that burned like embers. Witnesses claimed it flew silently, left 3-toed footprints, and vanished before you could blink. One farmer swore it hummed a tuneless melody, like a broken radio playing static. Another said it smelled like burnt popcorn and regret. Coincidence? Or the universe's way of saying you're not ready for what's coming? Real-world inspiration? Probably a sandhill crane on a bad day, a drunk hunter's hallucination, or a hoax. But the deeper truth? Humans create monsters when change outpaces understanding. In 1903, Iowa was industrializing. Railroads, factories, new technology. People were scared of the unknown, so they invented a creature to blame. It's like blaming a broken toaster for your burnt toast while ignoring the dead battery and the smoke alarm. Today, it's a local legend, featured in Iowa tourism ads and haunted history podcasts. But the real echo isn't in the cornfields, it's in our modern anxieties. AI, climate change, pandemics. Every crisis gets a monster. We need something to fight, something to fear, because admitting we're powerless is scarier than any horned phantom.
The Poplick monster isn't a monster. It's a mirror, and Kentucky's been staring into it for over a century. Long before railroad tracks sliced through the hills, the Shawnee spoke of horned ones, spirits that warned of danger, not death. They weren't killers, they were teachers. Then settlers arrived, saw a goat near the tracks, named it after a local family, and turned it into a hypnotist. Classic case of you don't like it, you demonize it. It's like blaming a squirrel for your Wi-Fi cutting out. The Shawnee saw a warning. The settlers saw a demon. One group understood the land's language. The other blamed the victim. Fast forward to 1930s Kentucky. Kids dared each other to stand on the tracks, whispering about a goat man with glowing eyes who'd lure you to your death. Coincidence? or the universe's way of saying, you're not supposed to be here. Its anatomy? 6 feet tall, goat-like body, horns that gleam like cheap headlights, and a gaze so intense it makes your legs move on their own. Witnesses swear it hisses like a steam engine, leaves cloven hoof prints, and vanishes before the train arrives. One man claimed it whispered his name in a voice like gravel in a blender. Another said it smelled like burnt popcorn and regret. But here's the kicker. Every sighting happens exactly where mental health resources are non-existent and rail crossings are dangerously outdated. Real-world inspiration? Probably a lost goat, a drunk hiker, or a person with untreated schizophrenia. But the deeper truth is, humans create monsters when they refuse to address real dangers. Instead of fixing the tracks or helping those in crisis, we invent a creature to blame. It's like blaming a broken toaster for your burned toast while ignoring the dead battery in the smoke alarm. Today, it's in podcasts, TikTok challenges, and even a local Pope Lick Munster festival where they sell goat-shaped cookies. But the real echo isn't in the woods. It's in our refusal to see the real monsters. Poverty, mental health neglect, and crumbling infrastructure. We'd rather believe a horned beast is luring people to their deaths than admit we let them fall through the cracks.
The Rougarou, a snarling, hairy werewolf that stalks the swamps, or a Cajun grandmother's way of saying, if you skip Mass, you are on the menu. Depends on where you ask. Long before Louisiana's bayous became tourist attractions, French settlers brought loup-garou myths from Europe, creatures cursed for sin. But in Cajun country, it wasn't about monsters. It was about community. Imagine a grandmother warning kids, don't miss church or the Rougarou will get you. And suddenly, Sunday attendance soars. Classic case of you don't like it, you demonize it. It's like blaming a squirrel for your Wi-Fi cutting out. Europe saw werewolves as tragic victims. Cajuns saw them as moral enforcers. One group felt pity, the others saw a warning. It's like calling a squirrel a demon because it ate your birdseed. Fast forward to the 1800s in Louisiana. Settlers swore they saw a humanoid wolf with glowing eyes near the swamps. One story claims a man who skipped church for years ran home screaming, "I saw it," then never missed Mass again. Coincidence, or the swamp's way of saying, you're not supposed to be here? Its anatomy, 6 feet tall, matted fur, claws like rusty nails, and eyes that glow like a dying streetlight. Witnesses say it doesn't attack, it haunts. It leaves claw marks on trees, probably raccoons, whispers in French Creole, probably the wind, and vanishes when you blink. One tale describes it smelling like wet dog and regret. Another says it only appears to those who've broken the 10 Commandments. Real-world inspiration? Probably coyotes, raccoons, or a drunk fisherman's imagination. But the deeper truth? Humans create monsters when they need to explain the unexplainable. In a tight-knit community, the Rougarou enforces rules without police. It's like blaming a broken toaster for your burnt toast while ignoring the dead battery in the smoke alarm. Today, it's in tourism ads, haunted swamp tours, and even a Rougarou fest where they sell monster-shaped gumbo. But the real echo isn't in the bayou. It's in our modern morality tales. Climate change? The earth is angry. Social media? The internet will judge you. We still need monsters to enforce the rules.
Maine's Specter moose isn't a creature, it's a question, and the answer might be worse than the myth. Long before Maine became a tourist trap, the Wabanaki people spoke of white moose as spirits, guardians of the forest, not monsters. They didn't fear them, they respected them. When settlers arrived, they didn't see protectors, they saw omens. Classic case of, you don't like it, you demonize it. It's like blaming a squirrel for your Wi-Fi cutting out. The Specter moose's anatomy? 6 feet tall, ghostly white fur, antlers that glow like a street light in a power outage. Witnesses say it vanishes before you can blink, leaving behind a smell of pine needles and regret. One hunter claimed his compass spun wildly when he saw it. Another swore his car battery died the moment it appeared. Some say it only appears to those who've forgotten how to listen to the wind. Others claim it leaves no footprints because it's not walking, it's remembering. One family reported seeing it during a blizzard, only for the storm to stop the moment it vanished. Coincidence? Or the forest's way of saying, you're not in control? Real-world inspiration? Albino moose exist, but are rare, less than 1% of the population. But the Specter moose isn't about biology. It's about the human need to believe in something bigger than ourselves. It's the forest's way of saying, you don't own this. Every time we clear-cut forests, the Specter moose reappears, not as a threat, but as a warning. It's like blaming a broken toaster for your burnt toast, while ignoring the dead battery in the smoke alarm. Today it's on T-shirts, in Maine tourism ads, and even a Specter Moose craft beer. But the real echo isn't in the woods, it's in our climate crisis. We're losing forests faster than we can replace them, and we need myths to remind us that the wild still exists. It's not about the moose. It's about our need to believe the world isn't completely known.
Chessie isn't a monster. It's the Chesapeake Bay's way of sending a text message we're too busy to read. Or maybe it's just a sturgeon who got lost in a bad mood and decided to audition for Jaws the musical. Depends on where you look. Long before the bay became a tourist attraction, the Powhatan people spoke of Wasson, water spirits who guarded the rivers and taught respect for the tides. They weren't threats, they were teachers. When European settlers arrived, they saw ripples in the water and called it a sea serpent. Classic case of you don't like it, you demonize it. It's like blaming a squirrel for your Wi-Fi cutting out. The Powhatan saw Wasson as a guardian. Settlers saw a menace. One group understood the water's language, the other tried to conquer it. Fast forward to the 1930s. Fishermen swore they saw a 20-foot-long serpent with a hump like a mountain range. A blurry photo in 1982? A log. But the legend stuck. Coincidence? Or the bay's way of saying, you're not supposed to be here? Its anatomy? Serpentine body, dark green skin that glows like a dying glow stick, and eyes that flicker like a broken traffic light. Witnesses claim it leaves ripples that move like liquid silk, hisses like a steam pipe, and vanishes before you can blink. One man swore it smelled like old fish and regret. Another said it only appears when the water's too polluted, like nature's Yelp review. 1 star, would not recommend dumping chemicals in my home. Real-world inspiration? Probably a sturgeon, a manatee that wandered north, though they don't live here, or a fisherman's imagination. But the deeper truth? Humans create monsters when ecosystems collapse. The Chesapeake Bay lost 90% of its oysters since the 1800s. We pump sewage into its waters, then blame the monster for the mess. It's like blaming a broken toaster for your burnt toast while ignoring the dead battery and the smoke alarm. Today, Chessie's on t-shirts, in tourism ads, and even a Chessie's Last Stand craft beer. But the real echo isn't in the bay, it's in our climate crisis. We treat waterways like disposable trash cans, then panic when the trash starts fighting back. We'd rather believe a serpent is haunting us than it meant we're the ones poisoning the water.